Amy M. Irvin, born Amelia Mary Irvin in 1866, wasn't from an old family in Deal. But as an independent single woman who could do her work from any place, she chose to live the majority of her adult life in this seaside town until her death at 84 in 1950. Both of her parents, Reverend Arthur B. Irvin and Louisa C. Brady, came from well-to-do families. Yet her father, the youngest son of a large family in Ireland, an old Ulster Scot family with proud Scottish origins, was on his own to make his own way. Amy moved to 78 West Street in Deal, Kent sometime in the first part of the 1900s and stayed in that house until her death in the mid-century post-World War II. She was a published author, best known for her schoolgirl books under the name A. M. Irvin, which is what she most depended on for income. She studied violin and cello quite seriously in Deal, sitting for exams, and had a few music students to supplement her income. She painted mostly landscapes for her pleasure and to give friends and family. She was never wealthy, but she managed with enough to live on, and her requirements for comfort were not very great. She nearly died in 1930, but recovered and lived another 20 years, suffering a number of strokes which left her in varying degrees of being an invalid as the war years approached, and quite dependent on help from others. Yet she continued to write and paint when she could. One of the lasting legacies of her writing was her descriptive letter writing, and the luck of future generations interested in the family story is that so many of the letters from Amy, going back as far as 1870, were saved and survived to be handed down to Janet Browne, her great-grandniece, who lives in Michigan in the USA. Of particular interest on the history of people in Deal are her wartime letters, which give the first-hand experience of an eccentric spinster woman as it was happening at her time. Censorship limited what specifics she could write about, and there are great gaps in the timeline when letters were not saved for some reason, but apparently the most interesting have been saved. At the start of the war, only her brothers John and William and her sister Winifred in Worthing survived. The letters and excerpts are taken from letters to her brother John and also, later, to his daughter Helen Sr., who lived in California. Amy was a fairly unique character in Deal at the time. With the hardships of the war and the cruelties of her infirmities, she struggled to survive, like many others during these difficult and lean years. Amy has described what was happening in her own life in these letters whilst living in Deal during the war years. She had an incredibly positive attitude to many troubling events around her. If you can't laugh, you just cry. Might have been a bit of her feeling. More than a historic accounting of events during the war, this is an insight of how it felt, at least to one eccentric elderly lady. Welcome to Amy's World on West Street, Deal. The full account on all the letters can be read on my website, Skardon's World. Please hit the link in the description. Go and read the letters. You will be taken back and thrown into a memorable past. Letters were donated by Janet Browne, Amy's great-great-grandniece from Michigan, and we thank her for all the information that's contained within them.